Lawyers of Reddit, what is the most badass I rest my case moment you ever witnessed? Wasn't my case, but in criminal docket court one morning the accused wore a pair of very unique custom-made red cowboy boots, stolen from the house he was accused of robbing. Wore them to court to plead not guilty. The prosecutor was laughing. In high school a girl had a pair of custom shoes stolen. I think they were fancy colorful Nikes. The girl who stole them wore them to school the next day, and that's how she got busted. She insisted she just happened to get the same pair of shoes. They had the original girl's name in them. They did not have remotely similar names. I was in an accident a few years ago, other guy's fault. He got a ticket for unsafe left turn. And I got a ticket because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. In the section on the ticket, the cop inadvertently wrote "Did wear seatbelt while operating motor vehicle." When I got to court, the judge asked how I wanted to plead. I asked the judge if I could ask a question first, and he said sure. I stated the ticket says I did wear my seatbelt while operating motor vehicle, and if that's the case, I want to plead guilty. The judge looks down at the ticket and looks back at me and says, "Case dismissed. Have a good day." I did. I'm not a lawyer, but a friend's sister went to court over a moving violation. She's an engine tuner and had built herself a beautiful first-gen Mitsubishi Eclipse with 6-700 horsepower at the wheels. This car, inevitably, attracted the attention of the local law enforcement, who pulled her over with no fewer than 8 cruisers after some slightly aggressive acceleration around a left turn. During cross-examination she asked the officer who'd made the call why exactly she had been pulled over. "I heard the engine revving, and I saw you spinning the tires and sliding around the corner." To be clear, officer, which tires were spinning? The rear tires. So I was spinning the rear tires, and it was the back end that swung out? Yes ma'am. That's correct. And you're sure that's what you saw? Clear as day, ma'am. The light turned green. You stepped on the gas, and the rear tires broke loose under power. The rear tires broke loose under power? There's no doubt in your mind that's exactly what happened? None at all, Your Honor. This officer is either lying or hallucinating. My car is front-wheel drive. I used to work in baby daddy court as a caseworker. This guy kept telling me, the mother of the child, anyone who would listen that the baby wasn't his. When they went before the judge confirmed through DNA testing that he wasn't the dad. Dude turned around and took off his jacket. His shirt said "not the father." Edit, the guy kept telling me, the mother of the child, and anyone who would listen. My bad. This may not apply, but there is a Judge Judy episode where a high school girl is suing 2 boys from her school for taking her backpack and stealing various valuables out of it, and something like the following conversation happened. Judge Judy, "And what was taken from your backpack?" Girl, "My phone. My money. My headphones." Boy 1, "No. They weren't." Judge Judy, "Excuse me?" Boy 1, "There weren't any headphones in the backpack." When I was in law school, I clerked for a criminal defense legal clinic. We had an assault and battery case where there was only one witness to the crime, which was the victim. I was sitting at the defense table with the actual attorney, another law student that worked on the case with me, and the defendant. We were all in similar looking suits as a matter of unplanned coincidence. The victim was asked to identify the person who committed the assault in court, and she pointed to me and not the defendant. Our attorney asked several times if she was really pointing to me and if she was sure, and she said yes. The prosecutor was visibly upset, and the trial pretty much ended there, as this was a bench trial and not with a jury. It was never discussed or admitted to, but I suspect our attorney purposefully had me there at the trial because I did have a passing resemblance of the defendant. A little late, but this is one of my dad's favorite stories. So he is out of state on business driving through some no-name town when he goes through an intersection. Suddenly a cop pulls him over stating that he ran a stop sign and ticketed him. My dad insisted there was not any stop sign, but the cop did not listen. Pissed, He went back to the intersection and saw that there was a stop sign hidden behind a tree and twisted in the wrong direction. Even more pissed, he went to a convenience store that was in sight of the intersection and bought a disposable camera while the clerk laughed because he saw what happened and knew what's up. Luckily, my dad had to be back there in a few weeks for work. The cop assumed that someone with out-of-state plates would just pay the ticket, and they were shocked when my dad turned up in court, calmly presented his evidence to the judge, and strolled out in 5 minutes scot-free. Not a lawyer, but I read about this. 2 guys were being tried for robbing a gas station. A customer who saw the robbery was now on the witness stand. The prosecutor asked him to describe what he saw. He said that he saw 2 guys robbing the store and then running out, and one of them bumped into him. Then the prosecutor looked at the 2 perps and said, "Are those 2 men in the courtroom today?" At which point, the 2 idiots raised their hands. Case closed. Edit. Grammar. Was on a jury. Defendant attempted to rob a tip jar from a barista, and the barista fought back. He ran, and she tossed the empty jar towards him. Defendant claims that he was hit on the head and injured by the metal tip jar, even though he'd already watched the video. And I already caught this detail. The prosecutor asked to play the video of the robbery again. And then she says how could the barista had hit him in the front of the head when she was throwing it from behind, and he's wearing a hat. She was so annoyed she had to point that out. I almost laughed. Not so much a rest my case moment, but a memorable one. There was a deposition of a witness and a room full of attorneys. Witness is asked if he knows or has spoken with any of the atties in the room before the deposition. Witness responds he knows Atty X because sometimes they go to the same parties and snort coke together. Needless to say, Atty X had an immediate meltdown. A good transcript to keep. Not a lawyer, but I once got stopped by a cop for a fix-it ticket. Basically, you have to fix a broken tail light and get a cop to sign the ticket, or pay the fine. That night, my car was totaled by a drunk driver who ran off the road and hit it at high speed. Can't fix a tail light if you don't have the car anymore. So I wound up going in on my court date to contest the ticket. Say sorry, I couldn't get the light fixed and don't think I should have to pay. The judge gives me this look like what's your excuse? Then I hand over the police report papers and briefly explain about the wreck. I didn't have to pay. I have 2. One my own, and one someone else's. In mine, my client was accused of not leaving this woman alone when she wanted no contact with him. He swore that they were dating, and she'd call the police when she got mad. She swore she wanted nothing to do with him. She had a photo on her phone of him sitting on her porch, to prove that he'd come around without her consent. I asked permission from the judge to look at the photos before and after to get context. Lo and behold, she had hundreds of photos of him eating dinner with her, sitting on her couch, wearing her undergarments. It was glorious. In the other, a colleague was questioning a police officer about a consensual encounter with a defendant. Officer claimed that he in no way intimidated the client, and that the client was free to walk away at any point. My colleague said, "Officer, you think based on what you said and how you acted that any person in this room under those circumstances would feel like they could walk away?" The officer said yes, and the full courtroom audience started laughing. During my divorce, my ex was on the stand lying her ass off about how she was totally not using Drew Gus and having an affair with our underage child present in the home. Her lover was outside because my attorney subpoenaed him and he had to be there. My attorney grilled him and what he said contradicted what my ex was saying at least a dozen times. Then my attorney put her back on the stand and made her admit every single lie she told the judge. Her closing argument was basically that mom is a liar and has zero credibility. I was awarded primary custody of our child, the house, child support, and her druggy boyfriend is not allowed within 500 yards of the child. That was pretty badass. A friend told me this story. He's not a lawyer but was job shadowing or something and was in court for the day. Anyway, one of the cases was a girl contesting a stop sign violation. The prosecutor asked how long she was stopped at the stop sign and the girl responds 40-50 seconds. The prosecutor asks her to look at the clock in the courtroom and proceeds to stay silent for the next 30 seconds. Which is a really long time. Once the 30 seconds is up, the prosecutor looks back at her and says, "Were you really stopped 40-50 seconds?" And the girl was basically silent. I'm pretty sure she was found guilty. Fraud trial. Prosecution QC gets right to the point pretty much. Third question into defendant. So you earn £45,000 a year. Have no properties. No other source of income. No inheritance, and as far as I'm aware have not won the lottery yet. You have foreign bank accounts with $1 million and a Ferrari. It must simply be a coincidence that defrauded entity has an accounting black hole pretty much equal to those riches. The defendant pretty much gave up at that point. Not a lawyer, but just had a case where a guy embezzled then sued us. He had done it by moving money to his company and calling it intercompany loans. His expert witness, who was a CPA, was asked about their one document they had produced. And she said, "As you can see, this document shows that embezzling plaintiff owes your company $650,000. We had no questions and rested right there. He should probably have gotten his CPA on the same page with him." As a clerk in the district attorney's office a few years ago, there was a battery case where the victim, addict wandering the streets likely picking fights, got into an altercation and had his hand chopped off by the defendant's machete. The day the victim came in to testify, the clerk asked him to raise his hand and swear to tell the whole truth, etc. And when he raised the hand less nub, every single juror gasped for air and we knew a conviction was on the way. Not me, but a buddy who is a DUI attorney. In the state he practiced in being in the car with the keys in the ignition, even if the engine isn't running, is considered a DUI if you're intoxicated. Had a client come in, told his story to my buddy. The buddy goes to the DA after discovery and says, "Don't take this to trial." DA says, "Yeah, right." In court, he gets the state trooper who made the arrest up on the stand, and the trooper says under oath, "I saw with my own two eyes that the keys were in the ignition." Buddy gives the cop several tries to walk it back, then has it read into the record that the car was a Prius. Boom. Instant dismissal, and the state he got into some trouble. I watched a judge question a person in small claims court about a variety of things having to do with paperwork, guarantees, warranties, photos, etc. and the lack thereof to support the claim. At the end he proceeded to rant on this guy for a full 5 minutes on how he, plaintiff, had wasted everyone's time, one by one ticking off the failures, and then told him he, plaintiff, had better hope he never appears in this courtroom again or be held in contempt. The entire room was spellbound. It was better than any TV show. My mum was a personal injury solicitor, and she was basically trying to prove that the car that hit her client and caused life-changing injuries, brain damage, belonged to X. X at first pretends not to live where he does. Then the car is found abandoned, all wiped down. The trail seems to end. Then, my mum has a hunch and checks X's Facebook. He had a public profile, and his profile picture was his standing next to the car in question. She screenshots them and sends them to the opposing counsel with a slightly more politely worded, "Your client's a dumb duck." She's retired now, but she considers it to be one of the most satisfying moments of her career. Needless to say, she won the case and her client got £1 million settlement and is now living in Spain. All for the want of a simple privacy setting and a touch of common sense. I once got out of a noise violation ticket. I was driving around and had my music in my car up. Cop pulls me over. Gives me a ticket for the noise violation. It wasn't even that loud, you couldn't really hear it from outside the vehicle, but my windows were down. So, go to court about it. My defense was, if the ice cream man can drive around blaring that creepy music, I can listen to my radio. Judge tried to keep a straight face, but I got out of the ticket. I kind of have the opposite of this. I had court last Tuesday as we were evicting our horrible tenants. I prepared for weeks. I compiled hundreds of papers showing that they were perpetually late. That we always fixed any issues in a timely manner. That they got super pissed when we told them we weren't renewing their lease. etc. I copied every message we had ever sent to each other. Made bullet points and numbered them for the judge to see. I typed what I wanted to say. And practiced it. I was ready to be a lawyer and defend anything they may have said against me. When it was our turn, the judge asked me exactly one question: have the tenants paid the rent? I said no. And that was it. All of my preparation for nothing. I got a violation put against my name for land I didn't own. It was the land next to mine owned by the city. I took pictures of how the violation was posted on the city's land. How the city's land was in violation of grass height laws. Its orientation to my land. How the violation did not have my lot's number but the city lot's number, and brought the posted violation to court with me. Got up to the stand. Explained myself and presented my pictures. The inspector who wrote the violation stood and called me by a name that wasn't mine, then showed pictures of a busted up car with a bunch of weeders on it I had never seen before. The judge raised her eyebrow and asked what address this was. He said an address that was across town from mine. I say that I also do not own that land. She removes the fines. Case dismissed. Definitely not a lawyer. But I once watched my friend get out of a speeding ticket by sheepishly and truthfully informing the judge he was late for a Rolling Stones concert. Judge didn't miss a beat. Just accepted the reason and dropped the ticket. I was in court on a speeding ticket in the case before mine was Fred the town drunk. It went like this. Judge, Fred. The charges here say you were arrested Saturday night in town drunk. How do you plead? Fred? Fred, I don't know. Judge, what do you mean, Fred? Were you in town Saturday night or not? Fred, well, that's what I don't know. I have no idea where I was Saturday night. But if I was in town, then I damn sure was drunk. Judge, chuckling. Okay, Fred. How's $25 sound? I am no attorney, but I once fought a complete crap citation and the officers who wrote it up knew they had pulled it out of their ass and did not bother showing up when I appealed it to Superior Court after losing in a kangaroo little court where I saw the officers meet and laugh with the judge beforehand. A respected attorney and friend of the family was a little disturbed with the situation and offered to represent me. The judge took his seat. The case was read out. Then the judge turned to my attorney and said, "What magical words do you have for me today, John?" One of the best feelings of my life. I'm on the defense side arguing that my court-appointed client didn't steal from Walmart. Walmart does not duck around with their loss prevention. My guy wanted to see the video, so I subpoenaed it. It's got him on it. Taking sheet. Trying to return a different item. Getting apprehended. etc. Watched it before trial. Showed it to him before trial. He still wants to go to trial and it's not like I can plead him guilty. So I have to argue it's not him. After the ADA and I finish with the loss prevention officer, client goes up on stand to contend it's not him. ADA's turn on cross. Rips him apart. Guy says he guesses he did it. Judge, any redirect? Counsel? Me, no further questions, Your Honor. Guy later says he might have been drunk when it happened. Then he wants to appeal it after the 10-day notice requirement is up. Thankfully my representation terminates past that point. So I just told him to file motion for appropriate relief and pray. I'm sure that was a great moment for the ADA.